This episode of Inside Golf Podcast is brought to you by Inside Sports Network.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Boston Capital Turtle, Steve, on the Hold the Green podcast.
All right, we are live. Tap in, Birdie.
All right, Carson Young is here.
I bet Ludwig at 28.
Let's go. I bet
You
him
did
at,
too?
I bet him at 25.
Low sevens. I think there's some guys in here we like.
Harris English at 7,300.
Why the fuck would I not bet Rory?
Welcome in. We are live, Players Championship week. We are live on YouTube. I think the Twitters are not cooperating right now. I'm being told that's an Elon problem and not an us problem. I'm glad to hear. So watch on YouTube live, hop in the comment section. We're going to be answering a bunch of questions. We got a lot to get to today. I'm fired up for this week. RB, how we doing?
Feeling good, man. Yeah, Twitter being down really threw a wrench in my prep today. I've got my Monday morning routines and people I click and articles I read, and none of that was available today. So,
well, we got Golf Tips Checker in the chat already. He's the main man I care about to get my who's catching the early steam on the tips chart. You can confirm if I'm incorrect. Golf Tips Checker, you do phenomenal work. 15 tips for Sepp Straka this morning crossed my desk on one of my group chats. That is certainly something.
Yes.
I did see a tweet by somebody who has followers in the space saying bet Sepp 60s now. Of course, the number went to 70 this morning. But it appears Sepp, a lot of Sepp love this morning. We'll get into all of it. Golf Tips Checker, put in the chat if there's anybody else that we should be wary about on this Monday morning. I assume you have a full card already.
Yeah, started about 8 days ago, I would say, or 7 days ago, whenever we got the FanDuel refresh. But yeah, we're done. So feeling good.
How do you feel about your card? Do you feel good about it for Players Week? I've heard this is the most volatile golf course on tour. So people are telling me.
Yeah, not overthinking it. Like we talked about last week, it's not a place where you're going to find form. It was really no surprise to see Colin Morikawa and Russell Henley and Sepp Straka and Shane Lowry up there because they've been playing great. So pretty similar this week, but you do always get those one or two guys who pop up. If it's if it's a Charlie Hoffman, if it's a Michael Kim, we'll talk about. So
sure.
Yeah, it should be a fun week.
We'll get to all of it. I mean, this almost ties a little bit into the question that our guy Nick asked. Shout out Nick on I believe he was on the Koala Carl train with you last week.
Yeah.
Are we throwing course history out the window with as volatile as it is here? I talked about this a little bit on my Sunday pod and a lot more extensively in the article, but where do you stand on the course history debate at Sawgrass? Because statistically, there is something to that narrative. I would love to come on here and say the narrative is wrong and take the contrarian stance. But it is truly remarkable how little the correlation of course history has been at this golf tournament over a large sample size. It's almost as if every single player that is a good player's guy has at least one or two stinkers in there as well. No one's safe.
I think that makes sense. Yeah. I am not super high course history. I like experience, right? I'll say that. I look at sort of Florida golf as a whole more than specific golf courses. So like you look at Valspar and you look at Bay Hill and you look at PGA National. So like I want to see something. But I think it's a really good course for you to dive into where, if a guy has good ball striking stats here historically, but hasn't putted well, right? Like that can easily flip. Or if he's never gained off the tee at this golf course, right? Or struggled on approach here historically, like that might steer me off, but not a big course history week for me in total.
I agree with you. I have a pretty low weight on it. in my model compared to some of the other things that I'm looking at this week.
Yep.
Do we need to do much of an API recap? We have a ton of ground to cover, and I want to get to every single question. This is a great opportunity if you are not an ISN subscriber, which if you're listening to this right now and you're not an ISN subscriber, give your head a big time shake, because what we have cooking for you this week is going to be an all-timer. I made a hire. We hired Utah Stick to do some freelance work for us. If Utah Stick is a true, if you know type situation. I mean, we protect Utah Stick at all costs, but he essentially goes to these golf tournaments and gives some really, really great on the golf course reporting about what he's seeing with the course conditions and the players. I'll give you a good example of this last week. I kind of liked Victor Hovland at Bay Hill. Like, I thought that it was a really good course fit. I had bet Hovland at Bay Hill the last 2 years. I thought it was a really good spot based on the golf course fit, that this is a good buy low opportunity for Hovland, because if Hovland is anything close to resembling the Hovland of old, then Bay Hill is one of the golf courses that he should play well at. Fast forward to Tuesday afternoon, Utah Stick is like, Hovland's having a freaking meltdown, man. There's like 18 different Harvard psychologists on the range with him, hooking him up to these 6 different launch monitors. And he just hit like 3 in the lake on 17. He's throwing clubs. He's having a temper tantrum. And that ended my Hovland exposure for the week. I actually moved more of that exposure to Keegan Bradley, who our guy Utah Stick said was absolutely striping it as well. So you can't get that level of, I mean, it's one data point along with everything, right? I would never live or die for that stuff, but he's got a really good eye. He has an architecture background, so it was a really obviously good fit with our brand. We don't really believe in like sending anyone to these places. Like, I really do a lot of vetting and make sure it's a really good golfer that has played competitive golf in the past and has an eye for architecture and course conditions. And the great Utah Stick is that. So for the first time ever at ISN this week, he's going to do some writing for the website. We're going to have him do a practice round report for us both on Tuesday and Wednesday. And then he's going to join us as always for the infamous premium show on Wednesday evening. The Ball Knowers After Dark show with myself, Kobe, Rishi, and Kyle, another Koala Carl guy. So I want to make sure I give the proper shout out to both you and Kyle, who hit the rare double with Russell Henley and Koala Carl. That's a hell of a card if I've seen it myself. Any final thoughts from Bay Hill before we turn the page?
Really happy for Russell Henley. I think that will confirm his spot at Bethpage. I think we thought he was going to be there, but now he will definitely be there. Scottie Scheffler's putter, for sure, something to watch again. Hopefully, it was just a blip because he's been putting really well since he's returned, but last week was absolutely diabolical. But no, Bay Hill just always kind of slaps. You have the weather. I mean, you have the water, but that if you tune in for Bay Hill on the weekend, you're going to see flushers, right? And we saw Henley and Morikawa and Corey Connors and Sepp and Rye and Fleetwood. Like, that's good golf, man. It's good golf.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I tweeted out on Thursday. I thought Thursday was a phenomenal day of golf watching. I mean, that was the day that we got all the wind. That was the day that everybody at ISN made all of their money, and then it slowly went downhill for us, only to see a spike at the end again from Koala Carl. But I only bet the PGA Tour, so I wasn't smart enough to tell you guys on the Koala Carl stuff. So I had this, which has been a theme for me the past couple of weeks, but I had this incredible round one, and then it just I slowly started to watch my DraftKings line, and then it kind of got a spike back at the end with the Keegan nuke on Sunday saved a lot for me, and
Sure.
Rye Scheffler. You know, I just, if you're gonna go as hard in the paint with Scheffler and Rory as I did, you need top 10s, not top 12s. And I think Scheffler finished T11 and Rory finished T15. Where are you at on both of those players right now? I mean, how would you assess both their performance at Bay Hill? And we could obviously use it as a transition to assess the question that we ask every single week doing it, RB, is the Sheffler debate. Is this the golf course to go all in on him? And what do you think the ownership will be compared to some of the other top options?
So I still think I shouldn't say concerned because he's been playing great. Splitting hairs here. I am more concerned about Rory than Scottie. Sort of as we mentioned at the top.
Seriously?
Scottie just had
You're more concerned about Rory as of Scottie to win the Players Championship.
Yeah, as in I think Scottie has a much better chance of winning the Players Championship.
Okay, good. I agree with you. I'm
kind
of lower than consensus on Rory this week.
I think so too. And I mean, his iron play was really bad last week. Scottie's ball striking was elite as always. Just as we mentioned, he just couldn't make a putt. I think eventually this stuff has to catch up with Rory between all the back and forth with TGL. He's playing a lot of golf. He won at Pebble. He's obviously just looking forward to the Masters, while Scottie is obviously ramping back from an injury and some time off. And I think there's something to that. Is somebody going to win this golf tournament 3 years in a row? Probably not, but much more interested in buying on Scottie than Rory this week.
I agree. I see absolutely no reason to believe that Scottie isn't going to continue to trend positively in the right direction. I know that he's not the Scottie that we saw in 2024, but one of the things you have to remember is, like, Scottie he's really only one behind. Scottie's first win of the year last year was at Bay Hill, and he didn't win Bay Hill this year. So he's one behind, but this start to the year is not anything even super dissimilar from how he started the year last year, right? The same thing happened last year where he took a couple tournaments to rev up. And even this year, he was at more of a disadvantage because he essentially missed the first 2 months of the season. What's interesting about Scottie's stat profile, and I'm going to glass half full this one, but he's just not matching everything in the same week with the consistency that he used to. But the spike we're still seeing, like we've seen really solid putting from Scottie Scheffler this year. He's gained strokes putting in 3 of his 4 events this year, and then he had a terrible putting week last week. Scottie came out of the gates and it looked like his touch was off around the greens. Well, he gained 6 strokes around the green last week and finished second in around the green play. We've saw him struggle a little bit with the right miss to open the season, while Scottie Scheffler led the field in strokes gained off the tee last week. And I think we could end the concerns about his driver. The irons weren't even close to Scottie's level last week, but it's not like we haven't seen great iron performances from Scottie in the past. So if I'm glass half filling this, I'm saying to myself, all of the tools that Scottie has are there. There's not like one aspect of his game that has not popped at an elite level this year. He just hasn't been able to time it in the same week with the consistency that he had in 2024. I remain a buyer on Scottie Scheffler. I mean, I as of now, I think that this is, I like kind of ranking the best golf courses on tour for Scottie Scheffler because it's splitting hairs at the top. I mean, what golf course isn't a good fit for Scottie Scheffler? But whether to play him every single week in DraftKings is highly golf course dependent for me, right? So if Scottie plays 15 events in the season, there's going to be a couple of golf courses that are really, really good fits for his game. And then comparatively speaking, there are going to be a couple of golf courses that aren't as good fits to his game, where they don't accentuate his skill set as well. For me, Sawgrass is like the 3rd best Scottie course on the PGA Tour. Like, I would put it right behind Muirfield Village and Bay Hill, just because it's not as long, So he can't really separate with his long irons as easily as he would the other two. But Scottie's like Scottie's the best player in the field from 100 to 150 yards.
I mean, yeah, with the exception of putting, he's the best at everything essentially.
And I, to be honest with you, RB, I think Sawgrass is the easiest aspect of Sawgrass is putting. I think Sawgrass devalues putting in a way.
Well, and the green's obviously pretty similar with Phoenix, where he's the best. But yeah, I think it still emphasizes ball striking, even if it's not the long irons. And I think when you have these courses where it can get windy and there is a big sort of missed fairway, sort of, water hazard penalty, I think that's also going to help him a lot because he's not going to hit the ball in the water ever, pretty much. So, he'll just sort of hang around as everybody else starts to eject.
I'm not going to belabor this point because I talked about it a lot on the Sunday podcast, and I want to spend more time getting past Scottie and talking about the rest of the 10K range. But the advantage that Sheffler has off the tee at Sawgrass cannot be understated. And I mean, the last 2 years that he won the Players, he ranked 1st and 5th off the tee. And I talked about this on the Sunday pod, but Sawgrass continues to trend away from being positional, right? Like more players are playing aggressive at TPC Sawgrass. The driver usage percentage is increasing. And so the biggest advantage that you could have at TPC Sawgrass outside of being a great approach player is if you have the ability to hit your driver straight, right? Because everybody can club down off the tee and find the fairway at TPC Sawgrass. I wouldn't count out guys that are inaccurate drivers of the ball, but have enough length to club down off the tee and still have a bunch of middle to short irons in. If you can hit your driver straight at TPC Sawgrass, which is essentially what Scottie Scheffler has done the last 2 years, it is a mega leg up. And I think that's why to me, would still probably consider putting him in 50% of my lineups. I mean, what do you think the ownership is? I mean, because Scottie Scheffler has this year in ownership been the player that everybody has been the most off on in terms of he has just consistently come in. I've over projected him from the industry this past week, and I still was 7 percentage points too low. He came in at 44%. So where do you think he comes in this week? At 12.8 with a 5K range.
Yeah, I was going to say with the 5K, I mean, it's a larger field, obviously. So I guess he could be below 44, but I would be surprised if he's under 40. I'll say that. So you might see 41, 42. It's super easy to fit him. Even not going down to the 5K, there's plenty of really good golfers in the 6s and 7s, but yeah, I'm still taking the over on 40% Scottie. And I think there'll be a pretty sizable gap because obviously Xander has a lot of questions around him. It's not a huge price drop from Scottie to Rory this week. So yeah, I think Scottie's far and away over 40% and far and away the highest.
And this kind of goes into Johnny's question about the build, right? Like this is the first time on DraftKings this year that we have a 5K range. So for somebody that's playing DraftKings for the first time this week, a casual player that's playing in the Millie Maker, I mean, how does your strategy change when you have a 5K range? How should people navigate this and assess a 5K range this week? Do you think more people are going to do stars and scrubs? I mean, there are a lot of players in the 5K range, like Michael Kim, okay, that people are just going to be like, Michael Kim should be priced 8,900 every single.
The top of the 5K range is really just guys who have contended all year. Michael Kim, Jake Knapp, Joe Highsmith, Andrew Novak. It's just, I mean,
so what should people do then? Like, I mean, should they just play the guys that are mispriced by maybe $2,000? If I'm watching this video right now and I'm trying to win $1 million, do I just play Michael Kim at 5,900 and figure everything else out? I mean, what do you do?
So, yeah, I mean, I am probably going to have more of a stars and scrubs spill this week. It's also, like you mentioned, due to the volatility of the golf course, right? Anybody who's in the 5K range is able to make this cut. Many of them have top 20, top 30 upside. Anybody in the field has miscut probability for this event, probably except for Scottie Scheffler. And I think for me at the build, I really want to find just a handful of guys between 8K and 9K who I'm like really interested in, and really focus on those. So yeah, I'm probably not going to have many in that range. I will be heavy Scottie and sort of the top guys that I like, and then pretty heavy in the low sixes, high fives this week.
So I'll just give an example of like what I believe, Johnny, is going to be the most popular type of build. Like what I just did right now is I plugged in Scottie to my lineup, and then I plugged in the two highest guys on the tip chart that are getting all the steam this week at Sepp Straka at 8,600 and Aaron Rai. I think both of those two players are going to be pretty damn popular in their range, especially considering the fact that the 8K range does not have a lot of, there's not a lot in the 8K range to sink your teeth into this week, at least in terms of my model. And then Aaron Rai at 7,100.
Yeah.
We are huge Aaron Rai guys. Aaron Rai was a core play for me last week. You know, I would love to tell people pick your own losers, but I know that that's not realistic, and Rai is going to be very popular. Now, the question that you and I have, and all of the ISN subscribers have, is like, what, you know, we were on 3% Doug Gim at the Honda Classic, you know, a huge core play for us. That was awesome. Now everybody else is going to hop on Doug Gim. Yeah. And I kind of made that mistake last week where another ISN bit is 8% Shane Lowry, 8K. And that ownership doubled. I looked at the ownership projections and I said, okay, Shane Lowry's 16%. That's double the amount of ownership that we at ISN like to play Shane Lowry. And I said, okay, I'm hopping off. You guys could have him. Shane's not cool anymore. All of the lame people joined. I don't want him anymore. And I faded Shane Lowry last week, and he turned out to be a great play. So I guess my big question for you is like, what's the demarcation point? When do you say too much is too much for these guys? Because like I said, I build a lineup right now and I see Scottie at 12.8, Michael Kim at 5.9, Straka at 8.6, and Aaron Rai at 7,100. That leaves you $7,800 left. Okay. So you could play another massive stud in that lineup. Like, let's plug Doug Gim there at 5,600.
You probably get to JT or something like that. Right?
You get to Hideki. So like that lineup is Sheffler, Hideki, Doug Gim, Mike Kim, Straka, Aaron Rai. What's your demarcation point? Because we're not used to a 5K range. So how much is too much ownership in the 5K range?
So I wouldn't play more than one of them, right? I'll say that. So when I say I'll be heavy stars and scrubs, like I will sprinkle these 59, these low six guys. I do not think I will have many that are double punt or double 5K, because I think that's when you get into the ownership issue, but you get into the dupes, right? People are going to want to play Scottie, Morikawa, Straka lineups, right? And I think when you get there, you're going to need Aaron Rai, you're going to need Doug Gim, you're going to need Michael Kim, you're going to need a Joel Damon, who's basically the Stone Men. And I think everyone's going to gravitate towards those names. So I think it's important that you pivot off those guys down low if you're going to be playing them with Scottie. Now, if you want to play a Xander Rory team, yeah, by all means, put Michael Kim with them, right? Like I think that's the decision point that you'll have to make.
I agree with you. I think that if you have Michael Kim, Doug Gim, I mean, frick, these are all our guys. Not Michael Kim. I'm not claiming Michael Kim. In fact, Michael Kim being suddenly good at golf and me having to navigate Michael Kim being good at golf has been super tilting for me because I have not been a part of this Michael Kim really good golfer thing. I missed him last week. I thought he was a bad play last week. So I'll take a massive L on that. And I'm still trying to get acclimated with the reality that Michael Kim might just be really good at golf. I think I'm much more likely to eat the chalk on Doug Gim this week. Although I just want to say, if you don't spy the dangerousness of chalk Doug Gim, then you have not been out at this.
Have you seen the man putt?
Yeah. You have not been at this long enough. I get he has great Sawgrass history. It's a great golf course for him, but there's danger there. So the 5K guys that I think are going to be super, super popular. And I love Joel too at 51. I love the way he's hitting his irons. I was on him at Cognizant, but like Doug Gim, Michael Kim, Joel Damon. Is there anyone else down there that you think is a massive misprice that's going to get a lot of love?
Yeah, I mean, Andrew Novak, we've been
Yeah.
on him quite a bit.
Yeah.
Played great last week again, right? Like he struggled on the final round.
I'll
But
throw a tiny challenge flag. He had a good round 3. He finished
good round 3.
He finished T35.
Yes, but yeah, really good round 3. Just had a bad iron day over the weekend, but yeah, I mean, we've been playing him all year. We've been betting him all year. So yeah, I think those 3 are going to garner a ton. And yeah, like, I mean, look, Alex Smalley's been playing really well, right? That's a name that people are pretty familiar with. So yeah, lots of options down here.
Yeah. So how would you rank them?
So I mean, I think Michael Kim still has to be number 1. He's just playing so well. But for me, it'd be Michael Kim 1, Andrew Novak 2, and Doug Gim 3. And those are probably going to be the only 3 that I end up playing under 6K because there are 6K guys that I like.
I can't sell you on Kevin Yu. I think Kevin Yu is the sharp response to Doug Gim this week. I think we let them have Doug Gim. We say, Doug, we bid you adieu. You were a core 3%er for us at the Cognizant. Our work here is done with you. You guys can have him. We're on the Kevin Yu train this week.
I just want Kevin Yu on more driver heavy. That's my one push.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But yeah, he's fine too. Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, so let's we almost worked backwards a little bit, but I really wanted to talk about the building strategy with a 5K range this week and how to assess the kind of the new style of DraftKings pricing and what type of chalk that we should be worried about in the 5K range. Let's talk about the top outside of Sheffler, right? So we've already touched on Sheffler, but once you get past Sheffler, let's have a Xander conversation. Let's talk Colin. Let's talk Ludwig. Cantlay. I mean, how are you assessing 9K plus outside of Sheffler?
So I don't think you could sell me on Xander, even though the ball striking was fine last week. Like I have to see more. Obviously almost won here last year. He's just never been a guy who I love playing in Florida for a number of reasons, even though he's had some really strong finishes. I just want to see more because if I'm playing Xander, it means I'm not playing Scottie or Rory, right? I thought Colin was going to win here even before last week, so I'm kind of glad that he didn't get across the line last week because I was waiting to bet him here. So he's probably my favorite.
I think, and I have waged war against the Colin number. I think you guys are betting a bad number. I don't think that it doesn't mean he can win.
For sure.
I love Colin, but I think if he won last week, the subjective narrative in me didn't think he would go back to back. I think he can win this week off a crushing defeat, although I know Brian would disagree with us.
I think that makes sense. And then for me, so it's Scottie 1, it's Colin 2, and then I was torn between a 20 on Ludwig and a 20 on JT this week. And I think they're going to be pretty similarly owned. I think maybe a little more towards JT just because he has the course history here.
There's a lot of steam on Lud though, and Ludwig's a big fade for me this week. I'm not about it.
I think people were shocked to see a 20-1 this morning. I took it. I was between those for my second spot. I took Ludwig, not overreacting to one bad round that he had at API on Saturday, shot a 77. You take that away, make it an even par round, and he's in 8th place. So I'm back on him. I just think it's the year of Ludwig. He does everything well. He can play anywhere. He's a good putter. You're not going to get 20-1s on him probably ever again for the next decade. So,
yeah, I'm not going to push back strongly with you on the course fit. I would mention that I do think short game is a really underrated aspect of TPC Sawgrass. It has some of the toughest around the green surrounds on the PGA Tour. I mean, if you probably know this from, I'm sure you've come across a couple Pete Dye golf courses in your day, but this is like the best green complexes that Pete Dye's ever created in terms of like the chocolate drop mounding and the humps and bumps and the pot bunkers. I mean, the around the green surrounds statistically at TPC Sawgrass are amongst the most difficult on the PGA Tour. And I think a big black mark for Ludwig, which is why I would prefer Justin Thomas on this golf course over Ludwig. Is
Yep.
I'm just not sure I totally trust his short game, and he hasn't really had that success on this strain of overseeded Bermuda that he has on a POA or a bent grass yet.
Do you know where he moved about 4 months ago?
I get it. He loves Sawgrass. He plays the golf course like every day. I know that's baked into the number though, friend.
Not as much the golf course as I just think so many. Obviously, last year he moved to Tallahassee. I just think being more familiar, playing in Florida, playing on Bermuda, playing in the wind and stuff like I just think that stuff matters more so than he likes the driving range here and stuff like that.
I'm not going to argue with any of that. The one thing that I will say, and I know Johnny mentioned him earlier, if the ownership is low enough, I would consider buying on Xander this week.
It'll be low enough.
Yeah.
I think so.
Well, and I'll tell you, I'm going back to Cantlay too. I'm playing Scottie. The guys that I'll tell you my 4 right now. This could change a lot. I mean, we still have a big Utah stick report coming. But as it stands here on Monday, if you're telling me the 4 guys above 9K that I'm playing, it's Scottie, Xander, Fleetwood, Cantlay.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I know.
A lot of Fleetwood love already this morning. So
a lot of Fleetwood love. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, here's the problem that I run into with Fleetwood is I bet Fleetwood last week at 30 to 1. And as Kyle so kindly reminded me, I'm done. Like you can't bet Tommy. You can't bet Tommy multiple times a year, let alone 2 weeks in a row. Which I immediately had regret from betting him last week, because as soon as I started diving into Sawgrass, I was like, oh gosh, like all of the reasons I liked him at Bay Hill, Sawgrass is actually like even a little bit better of a golf course fit than Tommy. And his irons have just been on a completely different level. And I think the ownership will be kept somewhat in check, because I do think Colin, Cantlay and Xander are going to get no ownership. And that's why I think they're both pretty sharp plays.
Yeah.
But so you're lower on. Okay, so give me your outside of Sheffler rankings 9K plus. Give me your top 4 outside of Sheffler 9K plus. And are you building 150 this week? Are you doing the million?
I won't be.
How big's your pool going to be?
So I typically have a pool between 16 to 20.
Okay, me too. So then you probably play each week. You probably play what? Only 4 or 5 guys over 9K.
Yeah, it'll be a max. It's going to be 4 this week. It could be 5.
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be 5 for me, because I'm not playing anyone in the 8s. None.
Yeah, for me, it's so outside of Scottie, it's Colin, it's Ludwig, it's JT, and I am going to sprinkle Wyndham Clark.
Okay, so you're a chalk donkey minus Wyndham.
Yeah, but I will build uniquely. So
I know. I believe you will build uniquely. And to be honest with you, I am Scottie, Cantlay, Fleetwood, Xander, and then if I play a 5th guy, I'm going to choose between JT and Morikawa.
Yeah,
and
I don't think it's too chalky, because I feel like the 9K guys that are going to be popular are going to be Fleetwood, Henley. But probably Fleetwood, Henley, and then Berger, Lowry next. But I mean, I think Tommy and Henley are going to be the 2 highest owned in that range.
You think Tommy Henley 2 highest owned in the range? Do you think Tommy Henley are as high as Morikawa, JT, Ludwig though?
Close to JT, Ludwig, not as high as Morikawa. No, I think Colin could pass Rory this week. He probably should pass.
I think
Rory
so too.
Week.
Well, I mean, I'm curious what you guys mentioned in the chat, what you guys think about ownership in the 9s, because I'm very curious about how it shakes out as well. I agree with you. I think Scottie's a pretty safe bet to get to 40%, even though he hasn't been playing lights out by any means. But once you get past Scottie in that range, I'm just, because you can build, I mean, you could build Rory Scottie lineup super easy this week, right? So there's going to be people that are going to play lineups with 3 guys above 9.6 and 3 guys below 6K. right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So then kind of towards the bottom, if you had to pick one lower owned, somewhat dart throw, we'll start with Berger at 9.6 and I guess go down to like the mid 8s, almost like the Berger to Straka range. Who's your favorite in that range?
Yeah, so I bet Wyndham Clark, so I guess him if he ends up being lower owned, but it's a pretty easy one for me, because he's right above Sepp Straka. It's Will Zalatoris.
Led the field in ball striking.
Course history is bad, but yeah, super encouraged by what we saw with the ball striking last week. I am still a believer. I saw the same with Benny On last week, by the way, too. The ball striking is potentially coming back. So yeah, Benny On, but more so Will Zalatoris.
I'm going to give you a Greg, I don't know about that. I don't know if I'd say zero chance. I mean, Scottie was literally 45% owned last week.
Yeah.
And has been consistently 10% higher than the projections have given him all year.
And we have a 5K range. Like,
I agree.
Yeah.
To agree with you, I don't think he will be 45%. I don't. Yeah. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he could get close to that. Nick, I think Sheff comes in under 40%. I hope you're right, man. It's definitely possible. Of course, I pour my heart and soul into ownership, and I think it'll be a really huge edge for us this week. Like, I'm going to do my ownership 3 times throughout the course of the week. I do my first update on Tuesday afternoon. So we've got some time for things to percolate and coalesce over the next 24 hours. I am nowhere near giving you some hard line stances on ownership. This is kind of where I come in and bounce some of my ideas and predictions off RB in the chat and see what you guys are thinking. But I love the ownership takes. Keep them coming because it's helpful for me in terms of projecting ownership. I love knowing what people think and how they're going to build and stuff like that. Those are all useful data points for me. I'll tell you something, and I don't need to do this, RB, because it seems like I'm already playing a good amount of leverage at the top. If I'm going to go pretty heavy on Xander and Cantlay, 2 guys I like. Yeah. Hovland did hit his irons really well last week. He just did like nothing else worked. So I'm going to send Utah Stick on a mission. And I just want to keep monitoring Hovland just because there are signs, like it's not like he's, it's not like he isn't, the irons are there. He just doesn't appear to be a functional golfer right now in terms of getting the ball in the hole.
And I think that's the important part. Yeah. I mean, I saw the same thing sort of you're referencing here. The ball striking looked great. The putting was awful. I think Ben Coley tweeted about it a bit too. I was not watching or tracking Victor Hovland, but that's, mildly encouraging. I need to see him make a cut, finish in the top 20, something before I dive in. Yeah. Because you're not getting a discount, right? Like you're not getting a discount.
And then final question before we start to get a little bit lower, but I'm comfortable spending some more time up here because I think we already covered the 5s pretty sufficiently. We haven't mentioned Lowry at all. And and there's 2 guys we haven't mentioned. Okay. We haven't mentioned Lowry at all. And we haven't mentioned Hideki at all either.
Yep.
And Lowry, like, I kind of feel like this might be an out of gas week for Lowry, but I also faded him last week and he finished 6th, 7th place in my face.
Yeah, I had a big Lowry ticket last week, so that was a very disappointing weekend, both for him and for JT. And then he bogeyed his 71st hole and missed the top 5, so that was fun. Yeah, I mean, I like this golf course more so for Hideki than I do for Shane Lowry, I would say. I think, again, I like Lowry where he can hit driver a little more often. I don't hate it. I don't think he's going to be super low owned. Like, he's going to be higher than Hovland, higher than Finau, higher than Burns, higher than Clark. I think Hideki could be lower owned. So that would be something that I have interest in.
Can I ask you why you bet Ludwig and Colin at 18-1 over Hideki 30? Because
I did the opposite all year, by the way.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm like, I feel like this was a departure from you, from who you are.
Yeah, I think I'm chasing Colin, be honest, for about the last 18 months. And I had this week circled, and I was hopeful we were going to get a 22 or a 25, but then he just played too well last week. So, yeah, I'm just playing catch up on both of them. And I wasn't planning on a large card this week, so I knew that I could take a couple shots pretty short.
Well, you also know what the Henley W does. And I had no exposure to Henley last week, but a lot of people were like, are you mad that you didn't bet Henley the week that you won with the amount that you have bet him in the past? And my answer to that is no, because I still think it is a long-term victory for data. And I have been banging the drum that these guys like Xander and Henley, you know, when they kind of reach their point of this guy's a peak loser. I mean, the amount of shit that Henley has got from our Discord, and I would say the golf betting public at large, has been it's gotten to pretty unfounded levels. And it kind of almost reached, again, close to a boiling point last week when he held the lead. I had him at the Cognizant, and he had a share of the lead on the back nine, and then Highsmith kind of just ran right past him. And that somewhat almost happened with Xander a little bit at the Players, right? Is that I remember doing a podcast after the Players, and I had Xander at the Players last year. And after Xander blew that Players, we got to the peak levels of like, this guy's a freaking loser. And it was justified. Like he blew that golf tournament, right? And then, you know, for the people that hung on a little bit later, and the people that were betting Xander at like Valhalla, it wasn't me. I had Bryson and Hovland that week, but the people that were betting Xander at like Valhalla after he freaking blew the Players, it was straight up data boys. Like the people that were betting Henley this week, it was straight up long-term data boys. And I think the broader point that I would make with some of this stuff is that it's really hard to make a judgment call on these guys that have a very large sample size of great golf, right? And so, you know, I wouldn't be super, super dissuaded if you've been going to the mat and riding with somebody that they're never going to be able to get it done. And I think you probably make that argument with Colin.
Yes, and it's certainly been longer than I anticipated, because
the problem is it's expensive. Like every time you invest in Colin, it's like at a really low number. So it's a really expensive hobby.
Yep. No, I know. And I had the same sort of reaction on Russell Henley last week, right? I also had a big ticket at Honda, Cognizant. I didn't bat an eye last week. I was not considering him. I'm glad he won and not Colin, but yeah, big win for Data Boys.
Do you think he could keep his foot on the gas? Like, do you think it's a Xander, 2 majors, like shorty Vegas pick, Henley can kick this door down again? I mean, his course fit at Players is like out of this world. Like I made the joke that Russell Henley with this skill profile, the fact that he doesn't have a top 10 there is insane, because I could not build a better golf course for Henley's skill set than Sawgrass.
Well, yeah. And really what we've seen, like, obviously, you know, he's a historically great iron player. But I mean, let's talk about the putting. He has completely flipped, because when he came out as an amateur, he was an awesome putter. And then he sucked forever. And now he's a great putter again. So yeah, you put that iron play with that putting, we've seen him contend in majors, even if some of them are like backdoor top 6s. He's been up there on long, difficult golf courses. So yeah, I don't expect him to go away.
Next question will transition us to get a little bit farther down. I don't like Spieth this week, Nick. I think it's an unnecessary risk. If I'm going to take a chance on low-owned guys, I'd rather take a chance on Xander. I'd rather take a chance on Cantlay. I just think playing Spieth at this price is unnecessary. I don't think you're buying that low. Like he's not that cheap yet. And I think TPC Sawgrass could be a bit of a disaster for him. I mean, historically, he has not been very good at this golf course, but is there anyone in, I mean, like the 8s and 7s we can clump together, because it's not a huge range?
Yeah, there's a few. So I bet Corey Connors. I think, again, I was probably going to bet him anyways.
I bet him here last year. You better hope for 13 under par, where like
Not 20 under, yeah.
20 pars in a row is good
Yeah.
enough to do the weekend.
Well, he typically trends into his wins pretty well, right? And I think you're seeing that. Obviously, based in Florida now, plays these golf courses really well. Played awesome last week. Really, I felt like he had a really good chance, but he just could not make a birdie over the weekend. He has a 7th and a 13th here the last 4 years. Just it should fit him really well. So I did bet it each way because he's Corey Connors. But he's probably my favorite here. The other one, is there flop lag from 12 months ago? Because I feel like Brian Harman has shown enough with the iron play recently and with the course history here that if you get him at, 4%, 5% this week, I think Brian Harman is a very, very good and sneaky play this week.
I'm with you 1,000%. I've been playing Harman. He was kind of our consensus. It was Bezadenhout and Harman were kind of our Wednesday premium show consensus plays in the 6K range. And they both made the cut, but it's not really a Vic lap either. I mean, Harman, I think Harman finished like T35. The irons have been great though. And I think if Brian Harman can do that at Bay Hill, then his ceiling is only higher at a golf course like TPC Sawgrass because he's just going to have shorter clubs in. And he's driving the ball straight. I agree with you. I think Harman, I will tell you this. I think that, and part of the reason why I think it's a good idea to take some leverage chances at the top of the board with like really great players that may be getting lower owned is because, and I don't know what the ownership on Connors and Siwoo will be, but I played Connors and Siwoo last year at the Players. Those guys were in my core. They're just freaking built for this golf course. I think Connors and Siwoo are going to continue to play well at the Players, infinity.
Yeah.
I have no reason to believe that Siwoo and Connors won't just continue to. I bet both of them last year at the Players. It's a really good golf course for their skill set.
Yeah. And if I look at that range, right, I think the two highest owned, just, roster construction notwithstanding, would probably be Rye and Keegan Bradley. And then Connors would probably be third. But that $800 from Connors to Rye is very, very meaningful if you're playing Scottie Scheffler. So if you're doing a Scottie Collin build, you really can't play Corey Connors, right? It would be exceptionally difficult. You can play Aaron Rye pretty easily. So I think that could keep Connors probably in that, 12 to 14 range, which I will be overweight on that for sure.
Connors, Sheffler, Morikawa leaves you 62 remaining. So let's plug Michael
Kim in there. Yeah.
And let's plug Doug Gim.
Yeah.
Who's 56. That leaves you with 7,300. So,
and you could get Aaron Rye, right? That's what I mean.
God, think about this. Ryan, think about this lineup. Sheffler, Morikawa, Connors, Rye, Gim, Kim.
Yeah, I think that's the placeholder that I built when pricing came out because that just seemed like exactly where I wanted to go. So yes.
Yeah, I tell you what, you're not winning the Millie with that either, though. I don't think.
No, but there's a perfect. Yeah. Well, I'll get my Laurie Cantor pivot in that lineup, so we'll get there.
Talk to me about more GPP targets. As we get a little bit lower.
So just a couple other names in that range. I still believe in Nick Taylor, long-term talent.
I like that.
Don't really know what kind of golf course I want Nick Taylor at. Obviously really good iron player, really accurate. So I guess it would be Sawgrass, but he just hasn't played that well here. But I really like Nick Taylor. I think the 6K range for the most part is kind of gross. It's a lot of names that you would want to play at Mexico and Cognizant that I don't really want to play here. Horschel, Kurt Kitayama, don't really want to play Lucas Glover, but I feel like they're all going to rate out fairly well. Kind of a dead zone for me. I'm going to hit Connors hard. I'm going to hit Aaron Rye like everybody. And then I'm really going down to the low sixes at that point.
I like Lucas Glover a lot. What's Glover's price?
68, which again is a tough zone depending on how you want to build.
Yeah, I like Glover a lot at 68. He's probably my favorite 6K play. I'll probably make my Kitayama donation, although That's a true gummy play. Like I'm not gonna ride for Kitayama by any means. Ben Griffin's playing his 9th tournament in a row.
Yep.
He stunk last week, right?
Mhm.
Finally, did he make the cut? I mean, I've been waiting for Ben Griffin to stink forever. Yeah, Logan, Glove was good. Glove helped me last week too.
Yeah, Griffin was T45, so he stunk, but he made the cut.
Finally, so he still made the cut. It's like it's almost worse for him. I'd rather have him miss the cut and at least get the.
He did not try very hard. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Glover's interesting. It's just like I don't know. I feel like the upside on this golf course isn't there with Lucas Glover, but I'd rather play him than most of the other names in here. I feel like JJ Spawn's playing really well. Again, not a Spawn golf course, but he just like every time I look, it's like, why is JJ Spawn tied 12th at the API? But he's not a Florida guy at all. Really has not played well over here. So that gives me a little hesitancy. Okay,
let us do some rapid fire questions here to make sure that we touch on every single. Get some players in now if you want, because I will if you're not in the Discord, this is my final show of the week for the public. I mean, you can get me on nonstop 24/7. I'll be able to get to stuff before the end of the week in the Discord, and we'll do a whole premium show on Wednesday night too. But if you're not a subscriber to ISN, this is your last 5 minutes to ask us about a golfer. Acro. You can kind of just go in or out. Like I don't need a full
weekly in.
Okay.
But in, yes.
That's an out for me. Although I do like his accuracy off the tee here. Which host guard RB? Nikolai or Rasmus?
That is a tough.
Neither of them are very accurate off the tee.
No, I trust Nikolai a bit more in a stronger field, so I'll say Nikolai.
Akshay?
I think he's going to be popular, so I will say no for me.
My numbers are kind of lower than consensus on Akshay. I'm not sure.
I think it's a good golf course for him. Accuracy, wind, iron play. But I think he's going to be popular. So
I don't know why I never find myself loving Akshay as much as other people do. That's going to be a no for me. Seabass, would you go back to Seabass?
No, too expensive.
I think I'm out on Seabass too. Harry Hall, LOL, Nick.
Hard pass.
He's in on the joke. He knows I don't like Harry Hall.
Yeah, hard pass.
Rose, amazing last week.
I kind of have a Rose addiction, so I guess he would be in my top 3 in the 6K range. So I'll say in on Justin Rose.
No thanks for me. I think you got. I think you're going to get probably 2 to 3 really good Rose performances throughout the year. I think you used a swipe last week, and I think he falls back to earth this week. Smalley or Putnam from Alex. I would prefer Smalley, but I don't know if I'm going to end up getting to either of them.
I would prefer Smalley too. Also not going to get there.
Carl, I'm off on my Bez numbers. I think Bez is pretty damn accurate off the tee, but I'm not looking at my numbers right now. So you could definitely correct me if I'm missing something, but I absolutely have it in my head that like Bez is a terrible driver because he's insanely short. So it's very hard for him to gain strokes off the tee on long golf courses. But my memory serves that he at least has good accuracy. I could be off though.
He's above average accuracy for sure, but he's not he's not a stripe show.
Hoagie makes sense on paper. Great. Yeah, Carl, he's going to always lose off the tee, but you can gain a bunch in accuracy and still lose off the tee, which is kind of the Seabass Brendan Todd method. Hoagie.
I'm going to say in just based on the course fit, but I don't love that. In on the course fit.
Yeah, makes sense to me. He's kind of playing like crap, although he did show some signs of life last week. Amazing iron player, has a T3 at the Players. I'd hope he's in the 5K range because
he's a flat 6, I think.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Seg.
for 5K, I can't really blame anybody. If you have to,
I like where
if you have to
Johnny's
go
head's at.
stone,
Like
yeah.
he's giving us
Yeah.
players that make sense in theory at this golf course. Like if you're thinking about Sig, it's probably because you're looking at like how well he's played at Sea Island and how accurate he is off the tee and his middle.
I think I prefer your guy Carson Young if I was going flat, flat fives. They're pretty similar. I think Young has a little more upside and Sig has a little more like, I'll get you a top 40.
I'm bringing on Cam for this. Do you want to give your reporting on Carson away to the public? I mean, he's like 500 to 1. Like, I don't think that I think we could save the public. If you're listening to this show at this far late, we appreciate you. Give you a like and subscribe. We are going to save you from yourself on clicking 500 to 1, 5.6K Carson. But we have some focus issues right now with a baby on the way, potentially.
There you go.
Yeah. So his wife, we've, like I said a while ago, we walk the course together every time he's in Texas. So we've gotten to know each other, and I follow her on Instagram. And a month ago on February 17th, she said 1 month until their baby daughter's born. 1 month from that day is Monday. So there's a chance there's a really solid chance he's not focused at all. There is a soft chance that he doesn't even finish and he has to go back to South Carolina. So, yeah.
There you go.
All right, no Carson Young.
Where are you going to find the in-depth Carson Young reporting other than ISN? I would probably avoid that one this week.
Yep.
Okay, last one or two because I got to hop into a Bob Herrick thing. Eric Cole?
No.
Okay. Knapp?
No.
He's got a club down here.
So I'll give you 100 more. You've got European Knapp and Laurie Cantor. In elite form is going to be 1% owned. Usually a guy who I would target on more driver-heavy golf courses, but I'm a big believer in the talent. He's going to get a lot of pub this week just because he's the first live golfer who's played in the Players. So I'm sure he'll get a press conference. There'll be stuff around him, but he's playing awesome right now. So Laurie Cantor, flat 6K is a play.
Taylor Moore, I don't really have a take. I don't think it's the best golf course for him. Same with Rodney as Innisbrook. I'll give you that. Valspar comp is not bad. So, yeah, I mean, you should 100%, if you're one of the people listening to this show right now, hop in the Discord for a week. I promise of all weeks, you will not be disappointed. Like, we added a full on the course reporting and did not change our price one bit. So outside of the best ownership in the industry, the best Discord, the model, the articles. I mean, I have a 4,000 word article on TPC Sawgrass up there already. Like, you can call us a lot of things. I'm sure we have I know we have an easy target because we've had a lot of success very quickly. But one thing you can't say is that we don't flood the zone with what you will get from our price point. We just added, and we're going to have it in the future at most PGA Tour events. Like, I'm working on this deal. We're going to have amazing on-course reporting this week in terms of the course conditions. Last week, the course condition stuff allowed us to find a huge edge on the winning score props. And Steve bet a bunch of those, and the Discord went crazy on Monday and bet a bunch of overs in round one because we saw that market was too low. We do that every single week. Like, I promise you, with the information that we provide, there's going to be a million ways for you to make money this week. A ton of actionable stuff. We're going to nail the golf course and the Players. Hopefully I choose some good ones this week because the process, I feel like, is as good as it's ever been. But frick, man, it's so hard to get the winner of the tournament right. I had an amazing outright year last year where I went way over what I was expecting for outright. So maybe I'm just experiencing that natural regression, but I would love
opposite for me this year. Struggling.
Yeah, you've been amazing this year.
hitting the outright.
Yeah, you've been amazing this year. So anyway, if you're watching this video, you don't want to join ISN, if you could throw us a like or subscribe on YouTube, that stuff means a lot as well. That's the best argument I have to still doing a bunch of free content as well. And thank you, RB, as always, man. Good luck this week.
All right, you too. Let's have
All
a
right.
week.
Did I end it?